The tracks in the sand vanished. The sandstorm hit like a beast unchained. One moment, the Namibian desert lay still and sunlit, the wind barely whispering over the scorched dunes. The next, the sky turned a deep copper gray. A deafening roar filled the air as walls of sand exploded across the flatlands. Visibility dropped to nothing. The world vanished in seconds. Jeremiah DuPont knew the signs. He had seen enough storms to know when to stop moving. He'd pulled over just in time, driving his battered old Land Cruiser behind a sharp rock formation that jutted from the desert floor like a jagged tooth. Throwing a thick canvas tarp over the truck to protect the engine vents, he ducked inside the vehicle and waited. That's when he heard it, a distant screech of metal, then the unmistakable crunch of something large rolling over, followed by a scream, brief female. He paused. His heart skipped. The sound was already swallowed by the storm, like it never existed. Jeremiah was 43, a black miner born and raised in the backlands of South Africa, with calloused hands and the patience of stone. After 20 years of mining in remote areas across Namibia and Angola, he'd learned one thing. When you hear a scream in the desert, you don't ignore it. He wrapped a scarf around his face, pulled his goggles down tight, and stepped into the storm. The sand hit like knives, slashing through his shirt and blasting against his skin. He moved slow, methodical, each step guided by the direction of the earlier sound. Within minutes, shapes emerged through the haze. A white Jeep flipped onto its side, windshield shattered, doors twisted. One of the back tires was spinning in place, whining like a trapped animal. There were people. A man was crawling away from the wreckage, leaving a faint trail in the sand. He held one arm tightly against his ribs. His other hand clawed forward like he was digging for help. That wasn't coming. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, was slumped near the passenger side, coughing and shaking. Jeremiah didn't hesitate. He grabbed the woman first, lifting her over his shoulder and stumbling back toward the rocks. He returned for the man, who was heavier than he looked, dragging him by the collar while sand poured over them like fire. It took nearly an hour, but he got them both to his truck. Inside, it was hot and dark. He lowered the windows just enough for air to circulate. Dust-free, the man lay unconscious, breathing in sharp gasps. The woman's lips were dry, her skin pale. Jeremiah handed her a metal flask of water. "You're safe now," he said, his voice gravelly. "Drink slowly." She took it with trembling fingers. You found us." He nodded. "No one else would have. What were you doing out here?" She hesitated. "We took a wrong turn from the lodge." Jeremiah frowned. "There's no lodge for 80 kilometers. She looked down quickly. "I meant, we were lost longer than we realized." He didn't push. "Not yet." She shifted closer to her brother. "His name is Luke. I'm Clara." "I'm Jeremiah," he said simply. Then something caught his eye. A phone, half buried in the folds of her torn coat. The screen was still on. By reflex, he glanced at it. The image burned into his mind. Stacks of money. Dozens of wrapped bricks of cash. He looked up at Clara. She was watching him. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You've got a good heart," she said softly. "Not many would risk their life for strangers." Jeremiah gave a small, dry laugh. "You two don't look like lost tourists." She blinked slowly. "What makes you say that? I've seen desperate, I've seen scared. But you..." He paused. "You're planning something. Even now." She didn't answer. That night, the storm continued to rage. The radio wouldn't catch signal, just static. Jeremiah tried twice more before giving up. The supply run was ruined, but he had enough rations to last 3 days. He pretended to sleep. That's when he heard it whispers, low and urgent. He shifted his position slightly, careful not to make a sound. Clara had leaned over to her brother, thinking Jeremiah was out cold. Double quotes, ... "We'll do it tomorrow morning," she whispered. "As soon as the light breaks." Luke's voice was weaker, strained. "You sure? We can't let him find the bags." A pause. "He wasn't supposed to be here." Silence. Then Clara added something that made Jeremiah's gut twist. "Once the storm clears, we finish it." Jeremiah's fingers tightened around the knife he kept under his seat. He had just saved 2 lives. Now, one of them might be planning to take his pegs they were willing to kill. For Jeremiah stood still, breathing heavily, the rising sun casting long shadows across the sand. The slashed tires, the footprints. Clara was gone, and she'd left behind a man too injured to walk, and a vehicle deliberately sabotaged. Dot's eyes followed the trail of her boots in the soft dunes. They curved behind a cluster of rocks, heading northeast, directly toward the flipped jeep. She wasn't running away. She was going back to something. He ducked into the truck, pulled out his tool bag, and quietly slid his knife into the loop on his belt. He wasn't going unarmed again. Luke was still unconscious, or at least pretending to be. Jeremiah kept one eye on him as he grabbed his flask and stepped back into the morning heat. It was already over 90 degrees. The sand had settled enough that the wrecked jeep was visible in the distance now, half buried like a fossil being reclaimed by the desert. Jeremiah moved carefully. His boots made little noise on the soft sand. As he rounded the last dune, he spotted her. Clara was crouched by the jeep, hands deep inside the wreckage. Her face was slick with sweat, eyes darting left and right. She had one of the black duff bags opened at her feet, and sure enough, it was filled with bundles of crisp, plastic-wrapped cash, tens of thousands, maybe more. Jeremiah stayed low, watched Clara yanked out another bag, zipped it halfway, then glanced around nervously. That's when she pulled something else from her pocket, a satellite phone, so she had communication all along. She turned away, speaking into the device. Jeremiah couldn't make out the words, but her tone was urgent, sharp, not the voice of someone stranded and desperate, the voice of someone coordinating something big. She's not just running, she's leading something. Then she froze. She turned slowly and met Jeremiah's eyes. Neither moved for a second. Then she clicked the sat phone off and stood, her face unreadable. "You followed me," she said calmly. "You slashed my tires," he replied. A beat of silence. The wind picked up. Clara nodded slightly, like she was admitting a truth neither of them wanted to say aloud. "I didn't want it, but you saw too much." Jeremiah stepped closer. "Bite. I saw two people about to die in a storm. I saved your lives. That's what I saw." Clara's jaw clenched. "You weren't supposed to be out here. We chose this route because no one comes through. We had it timed. We only needed one more night." He glanced at the bags. "Drug money." She gave a cold smile. "Worse. Corporate. Blackmail. Files. Passwords. Footage. Luke used to work security at the wrong company. He downloaded something he shouldn't have. We were paid to deliver the drives, and the cash was insurance. Problem is, someone's been tracking us ever since, and now they're coming." Clara looked toward the horizon. "Probably already here." Jeremiah exhaled slowly. "So your plan was to kill me before they found you?" "No," she said. "My plan was to survive." Then she added, quietly, "But if it comes down to it, yes, I'd do what I had to." Jeremiah stared at her, not with hate, but with something close to sorrow. "You've already decided you're beyond saving." She flinched at that, but didn't respond. "Let me help you," he said suddenly. "Not the money, not the drives, just keep you alive." "You'd help me?" she asked, shocked. "After everything?" "I'm not doing it for you," he said. "I'm doing it because I don't leave people behind, even when they don't deserve it." That made her look down. But before she could respond, a low growl of an engine broke the silence. They both turned sharply. In the distance, a black off-road vehicle tore across the dunes, kicking up trails of dust. It was coming fast, too fast for a tourist, too direct for an accident. Clara's face drained of color. "They found us," she whispered. She grabbed the duffel bags, but Jeremiah held up his hand. "Leave them. You'll never outrun them. Carrying that weight." She hesitated, then dropped the bags. They sprinted back toward the camp, hearts pounding. But halfway there, Clara staggered, her ankle twisting in the soft sand. She fell hard. Jeremiah grabbed her arm, pulled her up, and slung it over his shoulder without thinking. "Come on," he shouted. Back at the truck. Luke was awake now, and waiting with a gun. Jeremiah stopped cold. "Put her down," Luke said, his voice dry and cracked. "She's using you." Jeremiah lowered her gently. "You had a weapon this whole time." Luke didn't blink. "I had to be sure you weren't with them." "You think I'm with them? I pulled both of you out of a death trap." Luke's hand trembled on the grip. "And now you're trying to run off with her?" Clara shouted. "He's helping us." Luke "Stop." But it was too late. The sound of the black vehicle skidding to a stop nearby silenced them all. 3 armed men stepped out, each carrying rifles. They weren't shouting. They weren't panicking. They were methodical, like they had done this before. One of them pointed toward Jeremiah's truck and barked into a walkie-talkie. Another started walking directly toward them. Luke raised the pistol, but his hands were shaking too badly to aim. Clara backed up slowly. They won't let us live. Jeremiah stepped forward, hands raised. Hey, he shouted to the men. We've got injuries. You don't want a shootout out here. Not in this heat, not this far from rescue. The leader stopped. Then, to Jeremiah's surprise, he smiled. We don't need a shootout, he said, then pointed at Jeremiah. We just need him. The stranger they were really hunting the desert stood still for one impossible second. Then Clara whispered, they want you. Jeremiah didn't answer. His eyes never left the men. The leader of the group, tall, sunburned skin, eyes hidden behind military-grade sunglasses, stepped forward with calculated ease. He was confident, too confident. Not like a man trying to clean up a mess, more like someone who'd planned the mess all along. You're Jeremiah DuPont, right? The man said casually. Ex-miner, former contractor, one-time transport driver for Tampa Mines International. Jeremiah's fists clenched. Who's asking? The man smirked. Someone who's been looking for you for a long time. Behind him, the second man raised his rifle. The third one circled toward the bags still lying near the wrecked jeep. Clara looked at Jeremiah, stunned. You worked for Tampa, the mining giant. Jeremiah said nothing. He was remembering a different sandstorm, a different mine, and a shipment that went missing 6 years ago. Jeremiah had been a freelance contractor for Tampa Mines, transporting classified cargo between satellite dig sites near the Angolan border. One run had gone wrong. A shipment, supposedly just equipment, had disappeared during a desert transfer. Jeremiah had reported it stolen, filed the necessary papers, but someone inside the company had painted him as the thief. They'd let him walk, quietly, no charges, no investigation, but they never forgot. The man in sunglasses raised his hand. We're not here for your friends, or the money, or the drives. We're here for you, Mr. DuPont. You know why? Jeremiah said firmly. If you think I stole something, prove it. The man chuckled. Not stolen, exposed. Now Clara was watching him differently. What's he talking about? Jeremiah exhaled. That shipment, it wasn't tools. It was evidence. Photos, documents. They were dumping waste, poisoning entire villages near the mines. I didn't steal it. I leaked it, sent it to 2 journalists and disappeared. Clara blinked, stunned. That's why they buried your name. You were a whistleblower. The man with the rifle spoke for the first time. Too bad you didn't stay buried. Jeremiah stepped in front of Clara and Luke. You'll have to kill me to shut me up now. But the leader only grinned. We don't need to kill you, Jeremiah. We just need you to come back, quietly, alive. He pulled a small tablet from his vest pocket, turned the screen toward them. It showed an image of a young black woman, barely 20, with Jeremiah's nose and his stubborn jawline. The name below it read, Naomi DuPont, 21 Cape Town University. Clara gasped. Jeremiah's heart stopped. What did you do? We found her 2 days ago, the man said coldly. We didn't touch her yet. She's safe. But you don't come with us. That changes. Clara's hand moved slowly toward the pistol Luke had dropped. Jeremiah subtly placed his foot over it. He couldn't breathe. He had kept his daughter a secret from everyone after the fallout. Naomi was the only good thing he had left. And now these people had found her. The man added, you can still be a father. Come with us. Give us what we want. Jeremiah's voice was rough. I don't have anything left to give you. The man's smile faded. Then we take her instead. Clara suddenly lunged sideways, grabbing the pistol from under Jeremiah's foot. The rifleman turned at the sound, raising his weapon. Clara didn't hesitate. She fired twice. The first shot hit the sand. The second hit the rifleman in the thigh. He screamed and dropped his gun. Chaos erupted. Jeremiah tackled the leader, slamming him into the sand. The third man, running from the jeep, pulled his rifle, but Clara had already picked up the dropped one. She fired again, grazing his shoulder and sending him spinning backward. Luke, though wounded, pulled himself behind the truck and started the engine. Get in, he shouted. Jeremiah didn't hesitate. He shoved the stunned leader aside and grabbed Clara's hand. Together, they bolted toward the truck as bullets tore past them, striking the sand in loud cracks. Jeremiah leaped into the back, while Clara dove in front. Luke hit the gas. The Land Cruiser roared to life, bumping and skidding over the dunes. The slashed tires were still wrecked, but Jeremiah had filled them with emergency foam, enough to drive for 15 minutes before they collapsed. It was risky, but it was all they had. Inside the cab, Clara was pale and shaking. "Why didn't you tell us?" Jeremiah's voice was hoarse. "I left that life behind to protect my daughter." Luke groaned from the driver's seat. "And now they've dragged her back in." Behind them, the black SUV was back in motion, trailing dust like smoke. The man with sunglasses was at the wheel now, and this time he wasn't smiling. Jeremiah checked the rear window. They had maybe 10 minutes before the Land Cruiser gave out, and nowhere to run after that. They needed a plan, and fast. The woman with the rifle in the past, she buried the brakes, screamed as Luke brought the Land Cruiser to a sliding halt. Dust rose like fog around the vehicle, and for a few terrifying seconds, no one spoke. The bunker ahead looked abandoned. Rusted sheet metal, collapsed fencing, an old mining insignia nearly faded off the wall. But what wasn't abandoned was her. She stood motionless, rifle balanced against her shoulder, face set like stone. Short, dreadlocks, copper-brown skin, sharpened eyes that didn't blink, even when the Land Cruiser screeched just 20 feet from her boots. Jeremiah stepped out slowly, hands raised. "Ruth," her voice was calm and low. "Don't move, Jeremiah." Clara whispered from inside the car, "That's your ex." He nodded slowly. "Naomi's mother." Ruth kept the rifle trained on him. "Why are you here?" "You think I'm trying to be here," he said, half laughing through cracked lips. "I'm running for my life, same as you." She cocked the rifle. "I've stayed hidden for 10 years. If they followed you, you've just led them straight to me." "They were already coming," he said. "This has nothing to do with you, not anymore." "They threatened Naomi," Ruth said sharply. "That makes it my business." That shut him up. He looked at her carefully. "How do you know about Naomi?" Ruth's grip loosened slightly. "She called me." Jeremiah froze. "You've been in contact with her?" Ruth finally lowered the rifle. "She found me 2 months ago. Said someone had been watching her, asking questions. Said she needed to know the truth about you. About me. About why I disappeared. She thought you were dead," Jeremiah said quietly. "I had to make her think that." Ruth snapped. "To keep her safe." Behind them, Clara stepped out of the Land Cruiser. Her gaze flicked between Ruth and Jeremiah like she was trying to put together a puzzle, far more complicated than she thought she'd signed up for. "Look," Clara said, stepping forward. "We don't have time for all this. Those men, they're close. We need cover, weapons, supplies, or we're all dead." Ruth glanced at her. "And who are you?" "The one who shot one of them," Clara replied calmly. Ruth didn't smile, but she did step aside and nod toward the bunker. "Get inside now." The moment they stepped in, Jeremiah was hit with memories: rusted crates, broken generators, the thick smell of metal and oil. It hadn't been touched in years, but someone, Ruth, had clearly been living here. A cot in the corner, lanterns, maps, a shortwave radio, half assembled. Luke slumped onto a crate, groaning. His shirt was soaked in blood, where the seatbelt had rubbed across his wound. "I need to patch him up," Clara said, digging through a med bag. Ruth handed her a small first aid box. "Use what you need, and quickly." Jeremiah turned to Ruth. "How long have you been hiding here?" "Since the fallout," she said. "After you leaked the documents, I knew they'd come after anyone close to you. They didn't know about Naomi yet, but it was only a matter of time. So I disappeared, changed my name, lived off the radar." "You never told me," he said. "I couldn't," she replied, "because you would have come looking, and you're not exactly subtle." Jeremiah laughed bitterly. "You're not wrong." Suddenly, the radio on the table crackled to life. A male voice, gruff, deliberate, echoed through the bunker. "Mr. DuPont, we know where you are." Everyone froze. "You've got something we want, and you've got 30 minutes to come out, or we'll smoke you out." Ruth's eyes darkened. "They found the signal." "We weren't broadcasting," Clara said. Ruth looked down at the sat phone Clara still carried. Her expression hardened. "Unless that thing's been pinging satellites since the moment you turned it on." Clara went pale. I shut it off." "No," Ruth said coldly. "You turned off the screen. It's still live." Jeremiah grabbed it and smashed it against the wall. "Too late," Ruth said. "They're already outside." Jeremiah turned to her. "We have weapons. 3 rifles, minimal ammo, 1 flare gun, no grenades." He turned to Clara. "You know how to shoot, better than I cook." Luke groaned from the crate. Useless like this, but I can still pull a trigger. Ruth moved to the map on the wall. It showed old mining tunnels beneath the sand. There's a shaft out the back, she said. Leads to a crawl space. Narrow, dangerous, but it comes out half a mile east. If one of us distracts them, the rest can escape. Jeremiah didn't hesitate. I'll be the distraction. Ruth looked at him. No, I will. Ruth, they want you, not me. If I lead them away, they'll chase. You get Naomi's location, get to Cape Town, and get her out. Clara stared at her. Why are you willing to risk your life? Ruth looked at Jeremiah, and for the first time, something soft flickered in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or love that never fully burned out. Because I left once, she said. I won't leave again. Jeremiah's voice cracked. Don't do this. She gripped his hand, strong, steady. Protect our daughter. Then she was gone. Outside, the sound of her footsteps vanished into the sand. Moments later, they heard shouting, engines revving, gunfire. Jeremiah opened the hidden trapdoor and led Clara and Luke into the tunnel. Narrow, tight, suffocating. The smell of old minerals filled their lungs. Sand trickled from the ceiling, but it was hope. It was escape. Halfway through, Clara whispered, "Do you think she'll survive?" Jeremiah didn't answer, because he didn't know. Part 4, Cliffhanger. They emerged into the blinding sun on the other side of the hill. Jeremiah turned back once, hoping for a sign, and that's when he saw it. A column of black smoke rising from the direction of the bunker, and no sound at all. The smoke, the secrets, and the final betrayal. The sun beat down like punishment from above. Jeremiah crouched on the ridge, staring at the smoke curling into the sky, dark, heavy, and silent. It rose in twisting ribbons from the place where the bunker had stood just minutes before. There were no gunshots now, no voices, no sign of Ruth. Only smoke. She didn't make it, Clara said quietly behind him. Jeremiah's hands curled into fists. You don't know that. She stayed behind to buy us time, she whispered, and they didn't come after us. That means they think she was you. Luke, pale and still bleeding, groaned as Clara helped him across the uneven sand. We need shelter, she said, and a signal. We'd have to warn Naomi. Jeremiah nodded, eyes still locked on the rising smoke. There's a Tamba outpost east of here, used to be for geological surveys. It should have power and a satellite radio. How far? Clara asked. 8 kilometers. Luke nearly collapsed. Might as well be 80. Jeremiah walked over, lifted him onto his back. Then we'd better start walking. They moved slowly. The heat was brutal, even in the early afternoon. Jeremiah carried Luke like a soldier hauling a fallen brother. Clara stayed close, her eyes always scanning the horizon. Her instincts were sharp now. The hunted had become the hunter. By dusk, the sun turned blood orange and dipped behind the dunes. They reached the outpost as the stars emerged. It was little more than a rusted structure half buried in sand. A radio tower, a locked gate, a metal hatch covered in dust. Jeremiah pried the door open with a crowbar. Inside was darkness and silence, but power still flowed through the generator, and tucked in the back room, next to an old cot and a dry water tank, was a functioning satellite comm station. Jeremiah activated it and scanned frequencies, then locked onto a secure line. A voice crackled through. Secure channel, identify. This is Jeremiah DuPont, he said. Urgent request. My daughter is being targeted. Naomi DuPont, Cape Town. You need to get her to protective custody. Now. A pause. Then, confirmed. She's already been extracted. Jeremiah froze. What? The voice returned, clearer now. 2 agents took her into custody 3 hours ago. Safe location. She's asking for you. Jeremiah let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Clara grinned. She's safe. But then, the voice on the radio added something else. And we have someone else here who says she knows you. Jeremiah leaned in. Who? She identified herself as Ruth Messiah. Said to tell you, I'm not done fighting yet. Jeremiah closed his eyes. She made it. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat there in the silence, letting it wash over him like water on scorched earth. Clara leaned against the wall beside him. She's a warrior. She always was, Jeremiah said. She was the brave one. I just carried the shovel. No, Clara said softly. You carried the burden. Luke was asleep now, his body too exhausted to keep up with the adrenaline. For a few precious minutes, there was peace, until Clara asked the one question that had been hanging over them since the beginning. Why did they really want you? She asked. It wasn't just the documents. It wasn't just the leak. They didn't send a cleanup crew. They sent a team trained to hunt. Ruth said she disappeared for 10 years. I faked IDs, stole files, but I've never seen that kind of force used unless someone's trying to erase something big. Jeremiah didn't answer at first. Then, slowly, he walked over to the cot, lifted the corner of the mattress, and pulled out a faded metal lockbox he had stashed years ago. He opened it. Inside was a small silver USB drive. I kept a copy, he said. Not of everything, just one file. A list of names, executives, politicians, a few generals. All of them knew what was happening at the Tamba sites. All of them got paid to look the other way. Clara stared at it. Why didn't you give it to the press back then? I tried, he said. But they got to the journalists. One died in a car crash. The other disappeared. After that, I ran, buried this, cut ties with everyone. Clara stepped closer. We could still release it. You sure you want to do that? He asked. Because once it's out, they'll come again. And next time, they'll come for you. Clara didn't hesitate. They already did. They shot at me. They hunted us like animals. If we don't expose them, they'll do it to someone else. Jeremiah looked at her, really looked, and saw the same fire he once saw in himself. He nodded slowly. Then we go public. They used the Outpost's encrypted network, uploaded the file in segments to whistleblower sites, international human rights organizations, and press outlets with global reach. Then they sat in silence, watching the final upload bar complete. The truth was out. When the desert buries lies, it also uncovers truth. The second fire glowed like a dying sun in the distance. Jeremiah stared at it from the roof of the outpost, hands gripping the railing, wind tugging at his sleeves. Behind him, Clara stood with her arms crossed, a loaded rifle hanging by her side. Luke was inside, resting, alive, stable, and finally out of danger. The data upload had gone through. The truth about Tamba mines was now public, flooding news, outlets, forums, and international watchdogs. But their enemies weren't done. That fire out there, it meant Tamba was already wiping other evidence. Clara stepped up beside him. They'll keep coming, won't they? Jeremiah nodded. They can't afford for people like us to keep breathing. But the files are out, she said. Even if they kill us, it's too late. He looked at her. Yeah, but you saw how fast they moved. They'll twist it, say it's fake, claim we're liars, criminals. They'll buy off whoever they need to. Clara was silent for a moment. Then she whispered, so we finish what we started. Jeremiah turned. Her eyes burned with purpose. We testify in court, in public. We talk to every reporter who will listen, she said. We turn this from data ... into faces, into stories, into names they can't erase. He studied her. This woman who, days ago, had dragged a bloodied bag of blackmail cash through the desert, now hardened, focused, no longer just surviving, but fighting. You sure? He asked. She smiled faintly. I came out here to deliver stolen secrets for a payday. Now, I want to expose real monsters. Jeremiah exhaled through his nose. Then we go to Cape Town. Just then, the radio inside crackled again. Clara darted into Jeremiah, following. The voice on the line was female, calm, sharp. This is Captain Masando of the International Corruption Task Force. Am I speaking to Mr. DuPont? Jeremiah picked up. You are. We received your data drop, she said. And I'll be honest, you've stirred up a lot. Half of it was already redacted by the time we got there. But what remained? It's damning. Jeremiah tightened. His grip were ready to testify. And your daughter? She asked. His throat caught. Is she safe? She's here, Masando said gently. She's been incredibly brave. She wants to see you. He almost dropped the radio. We're flying out tonight, he said. We'll be there by morning. Clara looked at him with quiet relief. She knew what that meant. They weren't running anymore. They were heading home. 2 days later, Cape Town, the courtroom was packed. Cameras flashed. Journalists whispered behind notepads. Uniformed officers lined the walls. Jeremiah stood at the witness box, facing a line of grim men in suits. Clara was beside him, wearing a clean blazer over the same dusty jeans from the desert. Her scars hadn't healed, but they gave her voice weight. They told the story. The slush funds, the mines, the poison dumped into villages, the children who'd fallen sick, the lies, the payoffs. And then the list of names. Generals, officials, CEOs. It was electric. The prosecutors moved fast. Arrests began within hours. One of the executives tried to flee the country and was caught on the tarmac. Another had already burned his files, but the leaked copy was enough to charge him. Naomi watched from the gallery. She hadn't said much since Jeremiah arrived, just ran to him when they reunited and cried in his arms like she had as a child. Ruth sat next to her, silent, strong, her hand clasped tightly around her daughter's. Their broken family, together again. 1 week later, Final SCINE stood on a quiet street in Cape Town, overlooking the sea. Clara stood beside him, arms folded, wind in her hair. "They tried to kill you," she said. "You could disappear. No one would blame you." He smiled faintly. "I did that already, for too long, and now, I tell the truth. Every time I'm asked, no matter the danger, no more hiding." She looked at him. "You really think that changes anything?" He turned to her. "It changes me." She didn't speak for a moment, then said, "I'm going back to that girl's village, the one we passed by, the one near the poisoned river. I want to help rebuild." He looked surprised. "You're not going back to the city?" Clara shook her head. "No, I was running there. Now I'm walking forward." He smiled, deeply. They said goodbye like old soldiers, not with hugs, but with respect. Then Jeremiah turned to head down the hill. Naomi was waiting at the bottom, next to Ruth, holding a notebook. She called out, "Dad." He turned. She smiled. "Will you tell me the whole story now?" He walked over and took the notebook from her hand. "No," he said. Then opened it. "I'll help you write it." Final emotional message and life lesson. Sometimes the people we save are the ones who save us. And sometimes the pain we carry was never a burden. It was the seed of justice the world was waiting for, because truth doesn't stay buried forever. Not in the desert, not in the heart. The end.